Now what we're very basically looking for here, as I've already mentioned, is some short jointed breaks. Right, now I've homed in close so you can see this sort of long stem that I've just cut off. There's always a lot of conjecture about where to root your cuttings from, whether it's from a flower joint or a leaf joint, which is the one above it in this case. Now I always suggest in zonals rooting from a flower joint. The main reason is because above it you've usually got a double break, which has got a stem that would easily grow out of either side of that leaf joint above it. So I would always say use a flower joint to root your cuttings from. Usually go every other one. You'll have a flower joint, then a leaf and stem break, and then another one. You can see there's another flower joint above it. Then there's a double break of leaf where you'll get stems growing out from, and it basically goes on like that in zonals. Every other one's a flower joint, and every other one about in between those is the leaf and fresh stem joint. But what you want to ideally do is get them as short a distance as possible between each other. This is relatively tight just above it, and I will probably go from this flower joint to take this cutting. So I'm just going to break that off. It is quite stiff. Break the leaf that's always opposite the flower break above it there. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to roughly cut off just below the flower joint where I want the roots to come from. And that's now gone, that's redundant. And here's the part that I want to use for a cutting. It's relatively short jointed. There's very little distance between the little flower break there. Hopefully that's focusing. The little flower break there, and the next double set of leaves above it, and then the little stem that's running out to the growing point just above that, and that's quite short. Just tidy that up. I'm going to take the stipules off. Stipules are little almost like protectors of the little stem breaks that form around both the flower and the leaf joints. Right, now you can see there that I've just cut that off about 3 millimeters below the actual joint, and you can clearly see the joint. It's relatively straightforward to see. There'll basically be a line all round, whether that be slanted or straight. So I'm going to just do that now. I'm going to slice it just literally no more than about 1 millimeter below the joint. So hopefully you should be able to see that, and that's a really nice compact cutting. It's only about, well, just over 1 inch long, probably 2.5 centimeters long, and that's, you know, it's relatively sturdy, it's relatively strong, but that'll make a nice compact plant. That's what you're looking to do. So you want them as short jointed as possible. You could go a bit longer if you had some nice short jointed stems in there. I'll perhaps go in and come back, and I'll try and find a few others that maybe are a tad longer, but that's an ideal cutting for me that I'm looking for. And there we are. There's perhaps a slightly better example. Now, when they get a bit bigger, you've got to think about transpiration, and that's basically the plant breathing, and you don't want it to lose a lot of moisture. So in this case, I will take that leaf off. I won't break it off, but I'll literally cut it off. So just so that it's not going to get too stressed, because of course it hasn't got a root system to survive on yet. So you don't want it to stress up too much. So there's that one. That's a bit of a bigger example, just slightly bigger. It's probably 2 inches high. But I'm going to go through now and cut this plant back entirely, and I'll come back and show you what I do when I'm ready to just stick them in their compost medium. Okay, but there we are then. I've cut that back, and you can see with this plant I've actually cut this back really hard actually, because there's a lot of new growth coming all up from the centre, and I want that to grow on to hopefully make another good floribunda plant from this next year. Now, a couple of things that I didn't mention. The first thing is that the plant is just a little bit damp. It's not saturated, and it's just at the point of beginning to get a little bit dry, and that's exactly how I want to do it for that plant, so that it doesn't now so that all these cuts don't leak with a lot of moisture in the root ball. Now the other thing, certainly with zonals, I don't use any sort of hormone rooting powder or anything like that. These have just been, while I've been cutting that back, these, because it's quite a warm day in here, these have just been sealing off of their base. Pelargoniums do seal up quite quickly once you've cut them. Now with the other types, the Regals and the Angels and the Scentids and those sorts, they're a little bit different, and I'll talk about those, as I said, later in the season. Right, so I'm just going to stick these cuttings in these Furtis. I put them in their own little mounting tray. When you buy the Furtis, you can buy them with the sort of grid holders that they come with, and I cut them to shape to the number of actual cuttings that I need to do. So you just literally press them in that medium, just firm them down with your thumb and forefinger. Be exactly the same with the Jiffy 7s. Of course, the other thing you need to do is make sure you label them. And I'll stick the label in the side there so that we know where we are with them, the date that I took them, so I'm a bit of a stickler for the dates. And that's it really. I will position those underneath the benches to keep them well shaded and as cool as possible. Realistically, in about a week I'll be able to lift them up to a higher bench just to get a bit more light. And they should not take any more than 3 weeks to root at the absolute most. You're probably just over a fortnight at this time of year in the midsummer. But for now, that's bye-bye, and I'll see you again next time.